Good evening. We are team number 5, and today we're going to present about the effects of acid rain on the environment. Next slide, please. And let's start with the introduction. So, acid rain occurs when different chemicals are emitted into the atmosphere, such as sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides. And these chemicals come from, well, primarily from anthropogenic sources like oil refineries, industries, and automobiles. And when they are emitted into the atmosphere, they mix with other compounds and they are transformed into acidic substances, which are then transported by the wind into clouds. And this makes the clouds very acidic, and when they eventually precipitate, that acidic rain falls down upon the different ecosystems where it can have a devastating effect. On emerging ecosystems, it can damage buildings or sculptures, and on natural ecosystems, it can kill organisms and disrupt the biological cycles. But that's it for the introduction, and let's move on to the problem statement.
First of all, the ecological effects of acid rain are most frequently seen in aquatic environments such as streams, lakes, and marshes where it can be harmful to fish or another wildlife. And as it flows through the soil, acidic rainwater can leach the aluminum from the soil clay particles, and then these flow into the streams and lakes. Acid rain has many ecological effects, as I said, mainly on the aquatic environments. And the combination of these acts is uh, toxic to crayfish, clams, fish, and other aquatic animals. The effects of acid rain combined with other environmental stressors leave trees and plants less healthy, more vulnerable to cold temperatures, insects, and disease. The pollutants may also inhibit trees' ability to reproduce, and some oils are better able to neutralize acid than others. But in areas where the soil's is buffering capacity is low, the harmful effects of acid rain are much greater. We also know that acid deposits damage physical structures such as limestone buildings and cars, and then it takes the form of inhalable fog. Acid precipitation can cause also health problems, including eye irritation and asthma. Air pollution, like sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides, can cause respiratory diseases or can make these diseases worse. And the respiratory diseases like asthma or chronic bronchitis make it hard for people to breathe.
Okay, now let's go with the hypothesis. If the solutions following presented, which are mostly related with pollution emissions, are taken into account, the amount of harming acids and therefore and subsequently the acid rain is going to be reduced.
Okay, so as a team, we came up with a series of different solutions for the problem, and so here they are. So solution number one is to establish greater control of pollution levels and compliance with related laws. A soil reduction program could be established, which collects and disseminates information, provides financial assistance to states, and implements other activities. Pollution prevention can reduce waste at the source by modifying production processes, promoting the use of non-toxic substances, implementing conservation techniques, and reusing materials. Next slide, please. So the next solution would be to improve anti-pollution laws. Authorities could enforce laws such as pollution should be prevented at all costs. Pollution that cannot be prevented or recycled should be treated in an environmentally safe manner, or disposal or other releases into the environment should be employed only as a last resort and should be conducted in an environmentally safe manner. Next, please. So another solution would be to shut down companies that do not regulate their pollution levels and refineries, apply the use of mandates to regulate pollution prevention, and if not complied with, have the liberty to shut down these companies. An example of a mandate would be to mandate to develop and implement a strategy to promote source reduction. Next, please. Another solution would be investing in and opting more for the electric transportation system. To achieve a cleaner transport sector, a combination of measures needs to be implemented. Better designed cities, non-motorized transport facilities, more public transport, and cleaner and more efficient on-road fleets, including electric vehicles. Next, please. Another solution would be opting for ecological products for agriculture instead of using sulfates and other artificial chemicals. There are significant opportunities for industry to reduce or prevent pollution at the source through cost-effective changes in production, operation, and raw material use. The opportunity source reduction are often not realized because existing regulations and the industrial resources that are required for compliance focus upon treatment and disposal rather than source reduction. Next, please. Okay, so the sixth one would be to control water and alkalinize it when necessary to rebalance its pH. There are many factors that can affect pH in water, both natural and man-made. pH can also fluctuate with precipitation, especially acid rain, and wastewater or mining discharges. In addition, CO2 concentration can influence pH levels. Carbon dioxide is the most common cause of acidity in water.
So now we have a new solution, 57, with the use of catalytic converters. These catalytic converters changes harmful substances in a car exhaust gases such as carbon monoxide, nitric oxide, nitrogen dioxide, and hydrocarbons into less harmful substances like carbon dioxide and water vapor by means of chemical reactions. The interior of the cat is usually filled with a honeycomb structure onto which a coating is applied that contains a catalyst. The substance that creates a reaction with the exhaust gases changes their chemical structure. Next, please. The solution number 8 is to opt for clean and renewable energies. The clean energy that comes from renewable, zero emission sources that do not pollute the atmosphere when used, as well as the energy saved by energy efficiency measures. Clean energy works by producing power without having negative environment impacts, such as the release of greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide. A lot of clean energy is also renewable, including wind power, some hydro resources, and solar-powered energy generation. While clean renewable sources also preserve the world's natural resources, they also reduce the risk of environmental disasters, such as false spills of the problems associated with natural gas leaks. Because renewable energy sources don't emit greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide, they do not contribute to the global warming, or in this case, the acid rain. Out of all energy resources, we consider wind power, solar, wind, biomass, and geothermal as the cleanest form of the energy. Next, please. The solution number 9 is promote the use of public transportation. You can help in reducing the overall environment greenhouse gas emissions. The greenhouse gas pollution is ever on the rise that the recent states, organizations, and environmentalists advocate for emissions reduction techniques. By using public transportation, you will be able to cut back on greenhouse gases emissions by more than a half. Research has proved that only 3 to 8 people on a public Transport buses are able to cut emissions by half compared to an individual commuting in a personal car by himself or herself. Next, please. The solution number 10, we can say that is the use of the 3 Rs. Commute start by walking or riding to a work or the shops instead of driving. The motor vehicle emission remains the most significant source of most common air pollutants. Choose a fuel-efficient vehicle next time you are replacing your car. Save energy by turning off the television and make sure you flick the light switch when you leave the room. Not only will you save money on your electricity bill, you will be reducing emissions from coal-fired electricity plants, but energy appliances. Check the energy rating level when buying new or second-hand electrical appliances. More, more stars mean less emissions. Use environmental friendly cleaning products. Phosphorus in detergents increases nutrient loss in rivers and can cause excessive algal growth. Never put chemical or fertilizers to the drain as they get washed into stormwater drains or and into rivers of the ocean. Also, we can help recycling paper, metal, plastic, e-waste, glass, and organic compounds. Next, please. This solution is about supporting associations dedicated to the advancement and establishment of this measure to solve the problem. In the United Nations deemed climate change the defining crisis of our times, and according to the Gaby program on climate change communication, 50% of adults are alarmed or concerned about climate change. So whatever the scale, people want to address this. They want to do something, they want to feel more empowered, they want to feel effective, and the best way to do is to get together and share with what everyone knows. Environmental activist and founder of Project Drawdown, Paul Walker, tells Food Tank. Fortunately, there are hundreds of organizations around the globe who are working collaboratively and inclusively to find solutions by engaging leaders, community activists, policymakers, artists, families, and more. They are helping people step up and hopefully save the planet. Food Tank is excited to highlight a snapshot of exciting organizations working to solve the climate crisis. Next, please, Mariel. And the last solution that we have is to ask government to make a greater committee to act by providing the means to establish this possible solution to this environmental problem. In this case, one major area where the federal government is getting more involved with the environmental protection is the industrial waste, a major contributor to the habitat pollution and climate change. Some energy producing companies see increasing regulation as an interference with their business practice, but the reality is that the power plants are the largest contributor to carbon pollution. And what do the government make? They made some laws that they cannot make some a percent of pollution. So they are restricting about what they can do.
Now let's talk hypothetically about some experiments that we can do ourselves or us individually. Let's start with greater control over pollution. Daily, a single person can pollute over 4 to 16 tons of trash. The government should be more strict about polluting. That way people would take pollution seriously and the amount of pollution would decrease little by little.
Now, about the solution of the electric transportation system. It is a fact that we all know that transportation usually pollutes like a lot. A typical passenger vehicle emits about 4.6 metric tons of CO2 per year, along other chemical substances, which may cause acid rain. Just think about it. This big quantity is just one individual. and there are thousands, if not millions, in every single city of the world. So this is a big problem. But if the variables are put into work with electric transportation, we know that in a very close future, we can have electric cars that will create 0 metric tons of CO2, which is absolutely no pollution. So in this experiment, if put forward, it would be like an amazingly big reduction of acids.
Something else we can change is ecological products for agriculture. Instead of using products that are very much made by pure chemicals, we can use organic products. Let's say pesticides are very common use, yes, in agriculture, and in order to avoid the use of this, because pesticides works to avoid having insects in one's garden. Now, the use of artificial chemicals causes many pollutants and can cause acid rain. We can avoid this by replacing these pesticides with organic materials. Some examples of organic materials are black pepper, garlic compounds, corn gluten, and these are called biopesticides.
The next one that we can experiment is the three-way catalytic converters. They are devices that basically oxidize carbon monoxide and hydrocarbons, which reduce nitrogen oxides, which all of these, along with acids, can produce acid rain. So if we put our variables to test, we know by facts that it does reduce it. So it's just as simple as that. If it is applied, all of these wastes are reduced and therefore a great help to reduce acid rain. Now for our eighth solution, renewable energies. They are known for being clean and emit less or in sometimes not a chemical pollution. And as I said in the past one, this is facts. This isn't hypothesis. We know that. So when we use them, we can simply, by logic, by eyes, by results, notice how the contaminants in the air are reduced. So if we use them and we put them into test, preventing acid rain would be an easy task.
Another great factor of pollution in the air is public transportation. Now let's take in consideration that one of the biggest air pollutants is the use of cars, like my partner just mentioned. And instead of having our cars used all day, every day of the week, we can use public transportation that way. Instead of being 10 cars out in the street, we can have one car and it'll be a lot less pollution because it'll be one transport with 10 people, and it's not very much of a change. So let's try to change this world by starting with public transportation, or at least using your bicycle once in a while.
Now, the results that we can see thanks to the experimentation is that that a long-term study shows that acid pollution in rain has decreased with emissions, and the regulation made to citizens and the industries have decreased air pollution in the environment. Therefore, the frequency and concentration of acid rain has decreased. This is thanks to researchers Christopher Lenham and David Gay that made a study of 25 years long in the rainwater collected across the U.S. The goal of the experiment was to see the trends that in the acid rain levels and in the way they were affected by regulation of emissions. According to the Environment Protection Agency, sulfate emissions dropped more than 50% during the period covered by the study, and nitrate emissions dropped more than 30%. In addition, frequency of acidic precipitation has decreased across the U.S. Although the acidic precipitation has decreased, it has not disappeared, particularly remaining prevalent across the eastern U.S. In addition, the program has expanded its screenings and monitoring of other problematic pollutants such as ammonia and mercury. In conclusion, we know that acid rain is a phenomenon caused by air pollution, that it can cause several diseases and affect the environment for living organisms such as ourselves and animals. There have been several regulations, law, and methods applied to try and decrease the levels of concentration of acid rain and the frequency of it. The solutions that we propose are here in the presentation, and the experiments have shown that they are effective and should be applied more often and in several places to cause a bigger impact, especially in the cities like our own that have a lot of industries and people that contribute to polluting the air and therefore the rain.
Thank you for your attention.